Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a time when sleep wasn't soft, safe, or even guaranteed. Imagine curling up not in a bed, but on a scratchy straw pallet. You're sharing it with your coughing cousin, a couple of chickens, and right, a few hundred fleas. The fire smolders nearby, choking the room with smoke, but at least it's warm, which is more than you'll get most nights. The air smells like sweat, soot, and something vaguely sour, possibly your neighbor's foot. There's no glass in the window, just a wooden shutter that barely holds out the wind. Your clothes, still on. You sleep in what you wore to dig turnips in, crusty knees and all. And just when you think you can finally doze off, the pig snuggles closer, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments just so I know who's out there listening under the stars. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the sound of coughing. Again, it's not yours this time. Someone else in the one-room hut is hacking up something ghastly. Your straw-stuffed mattress rustles as you shift to the side, trying to find a patch not soaked in sweat or something worse. You're a medieval peasant. Sleep isn't restful. It's just a pause between waves of labor, noise, and low-level dread. And you're not alone in this misery. If you're lucky, the rest of your extended family is piled beside you, like medieval nesting dolls, granny, baby, your mother, the neighbor's kid who just needs a place for the night. Cozy. There's no bed frame, no pillow, just a lumpy sack under your head, maybe stuffed with dried grass, or, if your luck's gone truly south, moss crawling with mites. Furniture is a luxury, so you curl up like a dog, because that's what you've seen dogs do to stay warm. And you're not sleeping alone in the metaphorical sense either. Medieval households commonly kept their animals indoors, especially in colder seasons. Chickens roost in the rafters. A goat farts loudly near your feet. The family pig has claimed its place beside the hearth, and frankly, it's the warmest body in the room. But warmth comes with cost. Your body itches constantly. Bed bugs are a fact of life, not a hygiene issue. Fleas are just part of the ecosystem. You scratch in your sleep. You scratch while dreaming. You scratch until your skin is raw. But no one's exactly winning that war. Historians still argue whether peasants actually slept worse than elites, or simply differently. The rich had four-poster beds with drapes, feather mattresses, and canopies designed to trap heat and, ideally, keep falling mice off your face. You, on the other hand, have a torn blanket and a prayer. If you lived in a northern climate, winter nights lasted up to 16 hours. So, what did peasants do with all that darkness? They practiced segmented sleep, a first sleep at sunset, then a wakeful period around midnight to stoke the fire, check the animals, even do a little praying or whispering, followed by a second sleep until dawn. Sounds quaint until you realize that break in the night was often when fear slinked in. Sleep, it turns out, wasn't always voluntary. You collapse after a long day of threshing grain, scrubbing laundry by hand, hauling firewood, or walking 5 miles barefoot just to borrow a rusty spade. Your body doesn't rest so much as shut down. You ache from places you didn't know had nerves. Want a quirky tidbit? In some alpine villages, people would sleep in haylofts above the animals, using the rising body heat of cows and pigs to keep from freezing. It's like central heating, if the furnace occasionally bleated and pooped. And yet, for all its hardship, the medieval sleep setup wasn't entirely chaotic. Sleep was communal, yes, but that meant safety in numbers. If someone stirred at night snorting, seizing, or screaming, you weren't alone. The downside, nobody else is alone either. You're all deeply familiar with the sounds and smells of each other's slumber. Privacy non-existent. If you wanted solitude, you got it by walking out into the woods alone, preferably during daylight. Even then, there was always the risk of bandits, wolves, or worse. Inside the hovel, every snore and sigh was a lullaby, or a reminder that you weren't yet dead. by candlelight or dying coals. Some people managed to read, well, not peasants that required literacy. You probably fall asleep listening to your mother hum an old pagan lullaby she pretends is about saints now. She sings softly while weaving flax into thread by hand. Sleep hygiene was not a thing. Your feet are blackened. Your teeth, if you have any, ache constantly. No one bathed often. Your mattress has absorbed years of sweat and sorrow. If you were lucky, you got to take it out to air in the sun occasionally. If not, it just grew heavier with every season. Still, you do sleep, eventually, even if the rooster crowed too early, even if the lice won't give you a break, even if your baby sibling won't stop crying because she's teething and freezing and starving all at once. You close your eyes, inhaling that smoky air, trying not to cough, hoping the goat won't step on your leg again tonight. This is rest. This is sleep. This is the beginning. You wake with a growling stomach, not the casual I could eat kind of hunger, but the sharp, hollow ache that coils inside your gut like a cold fist. It's still dark outside, but your body doesn't care. Hunger overrides sleep like a blaring alarm clock. You curl tighter beneath your scratchy blanket, pretending warmth and fullness. But it doesn't help. You're a medieval peasant, and you're starving. Again, food is never a certainty. Most of what you grow goes to your landlord, the church, or rats. You live off what's left: rough barley bread, a few turnips, maybe a bit of dried pea soup. No butter, no meat unless it's a feast day. And even then, the scraps go to the priest or the pigs. Most days, you eat enough to not faint, that's it. And yet, famine is a frequent guest. Crop failure happens all the time. Too much rain, not enough, a late frost. Congratulations, no harvest. Now try sleeping while your body cannibalizes itself. Your ribs feel like they're pressing into your spine. You dream of bread that doesn't exist. Sometimes entire villages starve. In the Great Famine of 1315, it rained for months. Fields drowned, grain rotted, and people reportedly ate bark, nettles, and even, according to horrified chroniclers, each other. Historians still argue whether that last part was real or church propaganda, but let's just say you don't want to find out firsthand. In winter, the cold compounds your misery. Your blanket is thin. Your shoes, if you have any, are stiff with frost. You sleep in your clothes because there's no other choice. Sometimes you press against your brother or mother or even the family cow, just to steal a sliver of heat. It doesn't help much. You pull the blanket tighter, but your stomach keeps gnawing. Your dreams twist into feverish hallucinations: platters of steaming meat, dripping butter, honeyed bread. You wake up biting your sleeve. Just wool. Want something quirky? Some medieval people believed that certain foods helped you sleep better, like lettuce or warm milk with herbs. Sounds nice. Right, you don't have either. Just stale bread crusts that might break a tooth. If your hunger keeps you awake, there's no remedy, no melatonin, no midnight snack. You just lie there, wishing you were full enough to feel sleepy. Your body grows weak over time. Hunger doesn't just make you tired, it slows your thoughts, your breath, even your hope. You begin sleeping more out of exhaustion than rest. Less energy means you dream less, think less. The world shrinks to one-word food, but you still work. Every day, you trudge out before dawn to break ice from the water barrel or haul compost. You plow fields with numb fingers, plant seeds that might never grow, and scavenge for edible weeds along the road. And then you come home to sleep, not in relief, but in resignation. Your bones poke against the thin straw. You feel them when you roll over. They feel sharper now than they did last month. You're not imagining it. The irony. Sometimes food is all around you, but you can't touch it. The Lord's estate is full of grain and salted meat. You walked past his kitchen on the way home, didn't you? Smelled the pork crackling, heard the laughter. They don't worry about midnight hunger. They sleep well and warm. You think about stealing. You've thought about it before. One chicken, maybe. But the penalty is harsh sometimes, even death, or worse, mutilation. Your neighbor lost a hand trying to pinch apples from the orchard. They didn't even ripen. There's a child crying in the corner. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it's your sister's. Doesn't matter. The cry is thin and hopeless. No one has anything to give. The mother rocks back and forth, humming a lullaby with no melody, just motion. You've seen her bury 3 infants already. Sometimes, hunger leads to something worse disease. A weakened body can't fight off infection. The lines between famine and plague blur, and when you're already starving, even a simple fever can be fatal. There are no hospitals, no doctors, just traveling healers who charge too much and cure too little. Still, you lie down. Still, you try to sleep. Your body's doing its best to save energy. It's survival mode. It's hibernation without the fat reserves. You close your eyes and hope you'll be strong enough to rise tomorrow, to walk to the fields, to fake a smile at the Lord's steward when he takes the last of your grain and says, God provides. Historians often debate whether peasants accepted their fate or simply had no concept of alternatives. Was it resignation or resilience? Did they dream of rebellion? Or did they dream only of bread? You don't know. You're too tired to care. Outside, a wolf howls, or maybe it's just wind scraping the thatch. Either way, the chill sinks deeper into your bones. You reach for the warmth of your sibling beside you, who smells like sweat and hay. They're barely breathing. 2. Not from sleep, just weakness. And yet, you drift off, because your body insists on it. Because even the starving must rest. Sleep is your only escape brief, hollow and fading fast. You wake to silence. Not peace, just the eerie, too still silence that means something is wrong. The fire's gone cold. The air is sharp and unmoving. Someone's not coughing anymore. You roll over and notice it, the still shape beside you. Too still. It's your uncle, or your sister, or your neighbor's kid. There were too many of you packed in last night to keep count. But now one of them isn't moving, and the room suddenly feels smaller. It's the plague. There's no scream, just a long pause. You sit up slowly. You don't want to look too closely. You've seen this before. Swollen lumps, blackened skin, breath that rattles and then doesn't. You know the drill. Don't touch the body. Don't draw attention. Don't ask questions. Just survive. The Black Death hit like a thunderclap in the 14th century, but it didn't disappear. It returned in waves. In cities, in villages, in random pockets of countryside like yours. You'd think being poor and rural would spare you. It didn't. Rats don't respect property lines. You go outside to find the priest. If he's still alive. If he'll even come. People are afraid. Some priests flee. Others refuse to bury the dead. Bodies pile up. The smell lingers for days. It's the smell that stays with you. You can still sense it now, under your fingernails. You try to sleep that night, but fear won't let you. You're too aware of every cough, every creak. The straw mattress feels infected. You wrap a cloth around your mouth, though it won't help. No one knows how the disease spreads, not really. Theories fly like crows, it's bad air, or sin, or astrology, or Jews poisoning wells a brutal and false accusation that got many innocent people killed. Historians still argue whether medieval quarantine practices helped or hurt, but either way, they weren't enough. You hear footsteps in the dark, not thieves, not wolves, just the quiet shuffling of neighbors hauling out another body. It's your job. Eventually, you help wrap your cousin in an old cloak and drag him outside. He was only 13. You don't cry. There's no time for that. You're too busy wondering if you're next. The town is quieter now. You pass shuttered homes with red crosses painted on the doors. Inside, entire families lie together in final, tangled heaps. No one came to help them, and yet, some manage to sleep, out of necessity or from fever. Some sleep deeply, for the last time. You curl up each night wondering if this is the sleep you won't wake from. You whisper prayers, ones you half remember or half believe. Sometimes they calm you, sometimes not. Want something fringe? Some people believed that sleeping with onions under your armpits could draw out the plague. Others tried placing dried toads on buboes. Doesn't work. But you might try it anyway because when death surrounds you, logic starts to rot too. The plague doesn't kill cleanly. There's pain first. Fevers that boil your thoughts. Hallucinations that make your dreams bleed into your waking hours. Sleep becomes a slippery slope if you close your eyes too long. You might not open them again, and worse, no one may notice until morning. You start to avoid sleeping too deeply. You sleep in shifts, nap during the day, try to stay alert, but your body betrays you. You'll doze off, mid-thought, because exhaustion doesn't care about fear. Your sleep becomes fragmented, haunted, shallow. Outside, the burial carts creak past. You hear the call again. Bring out your dead. You've heard it every day this week. Every night, it follows you into sleep. Your dreams twist. You see loved ones walking through fields of bones. The sun never rises in those dreams. You don't know whether to be grateful when you wake. Sometimes, the plague skips a house. No reason. Just luck. You start sleeping further from others, hiding in corners, wrapping yourself in herbs or garlic, anything to feel protected. You don't talk about hope out loud. That feels dangerous, like tempting fate. The rats are bolder now. They scurry over your limbs at night, drawn by spilled barley or bits of dried blood. You try not to scream. You need to save your breath for praying. Eventually, the sickness slows. The village is quiet, not peaceful, just empty. Too many have died. You're still here. You don't know why, but you're alive. And now, you have to sleep in a half-empty hut. The silence is different now. Not eerie, just hollow. You try to dream. You really do. But even in sleep, your mind replays the worst parts. You whisper names of those who aren't there. You imagine footsteps that don't come. You wake in the night, half expecting another cough, another scream, another body beside you. You listen instead to the fire crackling low, and for a moment, you allow yourself to breathe deeply. One night without death, one dream without fear. Almost. The crack of hooves splits your dream apart. You jolt awake, heart pounding before your eyes even open. The fire's died, the room's black as pitch, and outside shouting, steel clashing, screams. You don't have to ask who it is, you already know. Warlords again. You scramble up from your bed of straw, head spinning, trying not to step on anyone. Someone yelps as you trip over them. Probably your sister. You whisper her name, but there's no time. The door crashes open. You don't own much, but what little you have tools, grain, maybe a hidden coin could be gone in seconds. More important, the girls. You throw your arm in front of your younger sister, blocking the light from the doorway, shielding her face with your hand. Your heart is hammering loud enough to drown out the sounds of your breath. Warlord raids are random and ruthless. They might be your lord's rivals, or mercenaries with no allegiance at all. They storm in at night because that's when peasants are most helpless, barefoot, half asleep, defenseless. You've got a shovel and a prayer. Historians still argue whether these lords were really feudal defenders or glorified thugs. Either way, when they arrive uninvited, they don't ask questions. They take, they threaten, they burn. You don't know what they're after this time. Horses, women, grain. A night's amusement. You drag your sister toward the animal stall, where the pigs are already snorting in fear. You shove her behind a barrel, whispering, "Stay silent." Then you turn and grab the door bar, trying to brace it as shouting nears. Want a fun tidbit? Some peasants buried their valuables in fake graves. They'd carve a wooden cross, mound the dirt, and hope no one dared dig it up. You once tried that with 2 crusts of bread and a dull knife. It worked, until your dog found it first. The door rattles. Then silence. Maybe they passed. Or maybe they're in the next hut, doing something you don't want to imagine. You squeeze your eyes shut, Pray again. Promise things. Beg silently. Time crawls. Eventually, the sounds fade. First the shouting, then the horses, then the sobbing. You don't move for hours. Just sit there, back against the wall, cradling your shovel like a club. Sleep not tonight. Maybe not tomorrow either. Your sister eventually falls asleep beside you, curled like a kitten, her face streaked with soot and tears. You envy her. Not the crying, but the sleep. Children can pass out even in nightmares. You just lie awake, staring into the dark, ears pricked for footsteps. You remember last winter's raid, how the barn burned, how your uncle ran back in to save the animals, how he didn't come out. You remember the way your mother whispered lullabies to cover up the screams outside, and how, when you finally slept, you dreamt of the sky on fire. That kind of fear doesn't leave. It carves little marks inside your brain, even when the nights are quiet. You don't trust them. Even when the wind is soft, you flinch at it. There's a phrase people say, sleep like a lord. It's a joke. Lords sleep behind walls of stone, with guards, in feather beds, while you curl up in a smoky room and hope the next bootstep skips your door. And yet, sleep still comes eventually, out of exhaustion, out of surrender. You're so tired, your limbs buzz, so tired, your mind can't even worry straight. You fall asleep sitting up, head against the cold wall, dreaming of nothing. Sometimes, the village retaliates after raids. You remember the time your cousin and a few others tried to fight back, set traps in the road. One warlord was thrown from his horse and broke his neck. The others came back with 10 more men the next week. Lesson learned. Now, you hide. You dig cellars, hollow out old wells. Teach the children to keep quiet even when terrified. Some families sleep in shifts, someone always watching, always listening. You don't sleep well when it's your turn. You sleep worse when it isn't. When the warlords pass, you rebuild. Again and again. Rethatch the roof. Patch the door. Count what's missing. Mourn what's gone. Sleep in what's left. You once found a broken helmet near the stream, dented and blood-streaked. It didn't make you feel safer. Just reminded you that violence sleeps in the grass around you. You buried it under a tree, like a warning or a wish. You wish you had a dog, you sometimes think, something that would bark before the danger got too close. But dogs eat food, and food is for humans first. So no dog, just your own ears, your own instincts, your own fragile willpower. And still, the cycle continues. Work by day, fear by night, sleep when you can, sometimes even with a smile when the moon is bright and the stars are kind and the fire doesn't sputter. You almost forget, almost. You're shivering again. Not the cute kind of shiver, the kind that rattles your bones, that makes your teeth tap together like spoons in a drawer. The kind of cold that creeps in even when the fire is burning. You're wrapped in a threadbare blanket, your legs tucked up, arms crossed, trying to curl small enough to preserve what little heat you've got left. It's winter and cold. In the Middle Ages, could kill. The house is barely more than a timber frame packed with daub and straw. The wind finds every gap. Frost creeps along the inside of the shutters. Your breath comes out in little white ghosts that hang in the air before fading into the blackness. The fire's down to red coals. You're tempted to throw on more wood, but you're out. You burned the last scrap yesterday, a broken stool leg. You'd strip the door next if it didn't mean freezing even faster. You're not alone. Of course. Your family huddles around the hearth in a lumpy pile of limbs and cloaks. Someone's toes are pressed into your thigh. Another elbow digs into your side. But there's warmth here. Human heat is currency. You all trade it. Give and take without complaint. Some sleep in shifts. Someone has to make sure the coals don't die completely. You've taken that duty before. Sitting by the hearth, feeding it twigs and straw, watching the shadows flicker against the beams. It's hypnotic, in a grim way. But miss your shift and everyone suffers. In wealthier homes, they had braziers, metal bowls of hot coals carried from room to room, or beds with thick curtains to trap body heat. You've got a wooden spoon under your blanket, so you can break the morning ice on the water barrel without touching it. Historians still argue whether medieval homes were truly colder inside than out, but for peasants, with open hearths and dirt floors, it didn't matter. Your feet were numb by dusk. Your nose stayed red until spring. And there were no pajamas. You slept in your work clothes, often damp. You didn't dare remove them. Too risky. Too cold. You just shake out the hay bits, pull your hood low, and hope your fingers didn't turn gray overnight. Want something quirky in parts of Northern Europe? Folks wore special nightcaps to bed tall, floppy things to keep their heads warm. You tried fashioning one once from an old sleeve. It helped a little until the goat ate it. The pain of cold is strange. First it stings, then it burns, then it disappears. That's when you worry, because when the cold feels comfortable, it means you're in danger. So you rub your hands together, slap your feet, whisper aloud to stay alert. Sometimes you press hot stones wrapped in cloth against your chest if you can get them hot enough. Sometimes you just hold your breath and count. 1, 2, 3. In the deepest parts of winter, the cold gets into your dreams. You'll dream of warm places, bakeries, sunlit fields, the inside of a sheep. Then you'll wake and cry, quietly, because you don't want the others to hear. Not because you're embarrassed, just because everyone else is already crying on the inside. Your mother once told you that sleep was a blessing, a way to pass through suffering. You're not sure. Sometimes sleep is an escape. Other times it's a trap. You drift off only to wake with frostbitten toes, or worse, you don't wake at all. You remember old Marin, the woman down the lane, who froze in her sleep 2 winters ago? She was found curled beside the hearth, one hand stretched toward the ashes. She looked peaceful, almost. You never sleep that deeply anymore. The animals sleep inside now, of course. The pigs and chickens make the house warmer and smellier. You get used to it. The pig's body is surprisingly comforting when pressed against your back. He's named Hot Lump now. You used to dream of wool blankets, feather beds, fur cloaks. Now you dream of firewood, just logs, just the idea of them, dry, ready to burn. In dreams, you stack them high. You're the richest person in the village. You whisper to your sister, both of you trying to stay awake a little longer. She tells you a story about a bear that once slept through an entire war. You laugh softly. Then you remember you don't know what day it is anymore. Time has frozen too. You doze eventually, half asleep, light sensitive. Every creak or gust snaps your eyes open. You don't want to fall into a deep sleep. You're scared you won't wake. That fear is real. It's happened. But your body wins. Slowly, you drift. Your muscles slacken. The pain of cold fades just enough to let your mind fog over. You dream of summer. You dream of rivers warm enough to bathe in, of sunburns and buzzing flies, of sleeping outdoors on fresh grass. And maybe, just maybe, you don't wake with your fingers stiff this time. Maybe the coals held out. Maybe the goat didn't steal your blanket. Maybe the snow stayed on the roof instead of leaking through. But you won't know until morning. And that's still hours away. It's the middle of the night, and no one's truly asleep. Not really. You lie there in the shared dark, eyes barely open, breath slow but alert. A rooster crows too early, or maybe it never stopped. Your father shifts near the hearth. You recognize the scrape of his boots before the whisper of the door. He's on night watch again. Someone always is. Because you're not just sleeping through the dark, you're guarding it. From wolves, from thieves, from the creeping, gnawing possibility that something not someone might be out there. Witches, maybe spirits, demons, or just a desperate neighbor who thinks your last turnip would look better in their stew. The night is when bad things happen. It's when people die or disappear. So, sleep in the Middle Ages wasn't just broken by physical needs. It was deliberately interrupted by fear, by duty, by custom. Someone must stay awake. Tonight, it's your turn. You rise, blanket still clinging to your shoulders, and ease into the cold air. The fire's low, but you nudge it with a stick. A few embers flare orange, warm against your cheeks. You toss on some twigs, just enough to glow. You can't afford to waste wood. Your ears do most of the work. You listen to the wind, to the distant snap of a twig, to the squeal of a pig rolling in sleep. You listen harder, hoping not to hear anything else. You count heartbeats to stay awake. Historians still argue whether peasants universally kept night watch, or whether it was more common in border regions or during periods of unrest. But your village, you always keep watch. You've had too many close calls and too few weapons. You stare out the door's peephole, just a slat of wood removed. Moonlight spills over the path. Everything is still, too still. That's what you tell yourself before you hear the dog bark in the distance. Except, you don't have a dog. You grip your pitchfork. It's not sharp, but it's long, and that's enough. You stand there barefoot, a skinny scarecrow of a person in a wool tunic too thin for spring, heart thudding. Eventually, the sound passes. Maybe it was an animal, maybe not. Want something fringe. Some villagers believed you could keep witches away by hanging a dead owl near your door. Others sprinkled salt in the corners of the room or carved crosses into wooden beams while whispering prayers to saints whose names were half forgotten. Your family uses garlic and iron nails. You don't know if they work, but they make your mother sleep easier. You sit by the fire, dozing upright, until your father takes over. He doesn't say much, just grunts, hands you the last crust of bread, then sits with his back to the wall, staring at nothing. You slip back into the bed pile, curling around your sister, who mumbles something about stars in her sleep. When you finally drift off again, it's that strange, half sleep, a foggy, dreamless state where you're never quite sure if you're awake or not. You've had dreams of someone walking into the room, standing over you. Once, you screamed and woke everyone. Nothing was there, but the fear stayed. Sometimes, you wonder about the monks up at the monastery. They sleep in shifts too, but not because of wolves or hunger. Their nights are divided by bells, matins, lauds, vespers, prime on and on. They rise from their hard pallets in the freezing dark to chant and kneel and pray. You passed them once on a cold morning, black-robed silhouettes against the gray stone. Their eyes were hollow from too many nights without REM sleep. You heard they sleep in open dormitories, heads propped up on wooden blocks so they won't lie down too comfortably, because that might tempt sin. You think about them sometimes when you're wedged between your cousin and the goat, but they have food, and books, and walls. The fear of the night has long roots. You've heard tales of night hags, shadowy women who sit on your chest and steal your breath. People talk about hag-ridden sleep when you wake paralyzed, gasping, unable to move. Historians now think it was sleep paralysis. But back then, it was a sign. You'd been visited. You've had that happen once. You remember it clearly. The cold wait, the silent panic. No words could leave your mouth, and when you finally sat up, gasping, no one believed you, except your grandmother, who gave you a little pouch of herbs to hang around your neck. She said it would keep them away. It still hangs above your bed. In the morning, everyone pretends they slept fine. You make jokes about snoring and pig farts, but no one says, "I was scared." No one says, "I thought I saw something move," because that gives it power. And besides, the sun is up now. The illusion of safety returns. You've got chores to do, turnip plots to dig, firewood to scavenge. You don't even feel tired until later, when you doze off while milking the goat and spill half the bucket on your lap. Your mother chuckles. "You dreaming of cheese?" she asks. You smile. but your eyes are heavy. Because you didn't really sleep last night. You watched, you listened, you worried. And tonight, you'll do it again. The scratching wakes you before the sun. You try to ignore it at first, half asleep and wedged between your brother's knees and someone's elbow, but it gets louder, persistent, soft claws on wood. Then the scurry, quick and purposeful, and now you're fully awake. Rats. Again. They own the place as much as you do. Maybe more. You sit up slowly, swatting at your blanket. One darts across the floorboards in the dim firelight. Another vanishes into the thatch. You hear one gnawing at the grain sack in the corner, and now it's a game of survival. Who gets the food first, your family or the rats? The answer is rarely you. You shuffle over in bare feet, cold, cracked, half numb to check what they've stolen. The sack is lighter. You reach in, barley grains, fewer than before. You curse under your breath, gently, so the little ones don't hear. Historians still argue whether medieval rodents were truly as plague-bearing as often depicted, or whether it was more the fleas riding on them. Either way, you've seen what they leave behind. The droppings, the tiny tooth marks, the disease. You lie back down and pull the blanket up to your ears. One of the rats squeaks again. Bold now. You don't bother chasing it. You'd only chase one into 5 more. They live in the walls, the ceiling, the hay. They know you can't get rid of them. Want something quirky? In some parts of medieval Europe, people held mock trials for rats or mice who damaged crops. Actual court proceedings, with a judge and tiny verdicts. You think about that sometimes when you see one dart under your stool. You imagine putting it in chains, asking, "Why my barley?" No answer, just chewing. You've tried everything, hanging your food, wrapping it in cloth, hiding it in pots. They find it anyway. You once caught one with a piece of stale cheese and a sharpened stick. You felt proud, until you realized that for every rat you see, 10 are hiding. Sometimes they bite. You've seen it happen. Your baby cousin had tiny teeth marks on her fingers one morning. Just a nibble, while she slept. Nothing serious. Not until the wound swelled, and the fever came. She didn't make it. You were the one who found her cold. That night, you didn't sleep at all. Your mother sometimes lays out dried mint leaves, says rats hate the smell. She crushes them between her fingers, muttering an old charm she learned from her grandmother. It smells nice, at least. Makes the room feel less like a rat's nest, more like a home. But the truth is, your bedroom is a rat's nest. The straw mattress beneath you rustles sometimes, and you lie there wondering, is that just your body shifting? Or is something else moving down there too? The older folk pretend not to care. They say, "What can you do?" and go back to sleep. You wonder how they do it, how they ignore the scurrying, the twitching, the risk, how they don't feel that creeping panic when the fire dies and the night takes over. The rats are braver in winter, bolder in famine. They sense your weakness the same way wolves do, or warlords, or tax collectors. You once had a cat, not yours. Technically, the village's cat. It went from house to house, taking naps, killing pests. It kept the rats down. But then came that bad spring, and the old man with no teeth. He cooked it, said it was just a fox. Everyone knew. No one said a word. You don't sleep as well anymore. Not without the cat. You roll onto your side, trying to block the cold draft from the shutter. Your sister snores quietly beside you. Someone's foot is pressed into your hip. The rats are still moving, chewing, scratching. You pull the blanket over your head. Eventually, you sleep again, but not deeply. Not like the rich, in their stone manors with stored grain and solid doors. Not like the clergy, high in their towers with wax-sealed larders and pantry locks. You sleep with your ears on, one part of you always listening for a snap of claws or a rustle in the dark. You dream of giant rats, once monsters the size of oxen, with red eyes and bloody teeth. You wake gasping, hand pressed to your chest. Your sister stirs but doesn't wake. She's used to your bad dreams. The fire pops. A few embers fall. One rat shrieks, maybe caught its paw. A small win. You smile bitterly into your blanket. Victory. And then morning comes. You rise. Stretch. Yawn. Step carefully. Shake your blanket free of droppings. Brush them from your tunic like it's normal. Because it is. You live with rats. They sleep when you sleep. And sometimes, they sleep on you. You wake up to the usual someone's elbow in your ribs, a chicken pecking near your ear, and the unmistakable scent of 6 unwashed people tangled together under one blanket. It's not glamorous, but it's life. You're a medieval peasant, and no one sleeps alone, not even close. You share your sleeping space with your entire family and occasionally a stray cousin, orphaned neighbor, or visitor who couldn't make it home before dark. The mattress is a flattened pile of straw stuffed into coarse linen, probably moldy. Your pillow is a bundle of rags, and your blanket, more patches than original cloth. But the real issue is space. There isn't any. You're sleeping like spoons in a drawer. Limbs tangle. Feet clash. Someone always snores. And if you need to scratch, shift, or heaven forbid roll over, you're guaranteed to wake 3 other people. But there's no room for modesty, or shame, or even comfort. And that's where things get weird. Because this isn't just about bad mattresses or crowded beds. This is about intimacy, the kind that makes sleep awkward, and sometimes downright ridiculous. Parents, children, teenagers, elders, all in one bed, all pretending not to hear or feel whatever's going on beside them. Historians still argue whether this kind of co-sleeping led to emotional closeness or suppressed a century's worth of unspoken trauma. Either way, it was normal. You weren't supposed to notice. If people got frisky under the blanket, you rolled over and pretended you were dreaming about bread. Want something quirky in some parts of Europe? Newlyweds didn't even get a private room for their wedding night. The bride's family, neighbors, and curious farm animals might all be within earshot. Some guests even stayed in the room to supervise. Romance. But for you, it's not even about romance. It's about pretending. Pretending your brother's hiccups aren't waking the baby. Pretending you didn't hear your cousin talking in his sleep about that girl from the next village. Pretending your mother's sighs are just about the leaking roof, and not something sadder. You long for space sometimes. Just a quiet corner, a wall between you and the rest of the world. But walls mean wealth. Privacy is a luxury, and sleep is communal. Even if your family had more room, they'd still probably share it, because heat matters more than shame. 1 body warms the air, 2 make a dent, 3. That's survival, and you've learned tricks to make it work, like facing away from each other, alternating heads and feet to avoid the worst smells, or using someone's hip as a pillow, if they're not too bony. You've even tried timing your movements with theirs, so you shift without waking the whole pile. Still, it's hard, especially in summer, when it's hot and everyone's sweating. You lie awake, stuck between sticky limbs, unable to move without peeling yourself off another human, and heaven help you if someone had garlic for supper. Sometimes, you sneak outside at night just for a breath of air. You lie on the grass and look up at the stars, alone at last. It feels dangerous, raw, but also freeing, until the mosquitoes find you, and you crawl back to the heap like a defeated worm. The church preaches a lot about purity, about resisting sin, about modesty. You try, but when you share a bed with your entire family, the lines between sacred and awkward blur. You once heard a priest talk about chastity in thought and deed, and you thought about how your sister kicks in her sleep. And yet, somehow, you sleep, not always well, not always soundly, but eventually, exhaustion wins. Your body knows how to shut off, even when your mind is tangled up in whispers, rustling hay, and someone else's breath. You sometimes wonder what it'd be like to sleep alone, in a bed, with sheets, with silence, with the option to sprawl without kicking someone's shin. You've heard tales of noble women with feather beds so soft they sink like clouds, but you've never even touched a feather. Sometimes the priest's sermons mention heavenly sleep, eternal rest. You try not to think too hard about that one, but here, now, you shift in your straw bundle, elbow your brother back into position, and try to sleep through the latest nighttime drama, your cousin grinding his teeth, your mother murmuring her prayers, and your father snoring like a church bell full of bees. Sleep comes eventually, because it has to, because there's work tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, and if you're lucky, you'll get through it with only a sore back, a bruised hip, and maybe just a little less patience for your family's night noises, because sleep in this life is not about peace. It's about endurance. It's finally happened. You've drifted off, sandwiched between your cousin's twitchy legs and your father's slow, wheezy snore when suddenly clang. You jolt upright, eyes wide, heart already racing before your brain catches up. It's not a raid this time, not a rat, not even the goat knocking over something in the corner. No, this is worse. It's the church bell. Again, you groan quietly, and then louder, because why not? The baby starts wailing. Your sister mutters a curse that definitely wasn't in the Psalms. But no one argues. You all know what time it is. It's matins, midnight prayer, because apparently God keeps nocturnal hours. You stumble from your hay nest and pull your tunic tighter. The air inside is freezing, the outside worse, but the bell doesn't care. The monks in the stone monastery half a mile away ring it with the self-righteous energy of people who've never had to milk a goat on 3 hours of sleep. You trudge outside, the moon is high, the path is slick with frost, and your breath clouds the air like a ghost. A few others shuffle along the same trail, your neighbors, equally miserable, equally half-dressed and prayer-bound. No one speaks. You don't have to. You've all been broken by this same cruel routine. Historians still argue whether midnight prayers were compulsory for peasants or more of a pious suggestion. But in your village, you go. The priest notices who shows up, and you really don't want to be the topic of his next sermon. Again, inside the chapel, it's slightly warmer, but only just. The candlelight flickers against damp stone walls. The benches are cold, splintered wood. You kneel on the floor. Your knees crack like old floorboards. You mumble the prayer's Latin phrases you don't understand, but can parrot in your sleep, which you've definitely done. Want something quirky? Monks used to rate their own holiness by how fast they could get out of bed and into chapel. Some wore their habits to sleep just to shave off seconds. One even tied a rope from his bed to the chapel door to run in blind. Holy hustle. You look around. Some people are already nodding off mid-chant. One man's head droops forward and bumps the bench. He doesn't wake. Impressive. You whisper the final amen with relief. The bell rings again, distant, cold, final. You stand up, joints aching, legs wobbly. Back outside. The cold slaps you like a wet fish. Your breath hitches. Your fingers are already stiff again. You make it home. You climb back into the heap. It's somehow colder now. Everyone's shifted, and the good spots are gone. You find your patch of straw, curl up, and try to warm your nose against someone's shoulder. But you're not falling asleep yet. Your body's confused, interrupted. Your second sleep won't come easily. Not with your feet still freezing and your knees still buzzing from stone floorboards. You lie awake, thinking, not in a poetic, dreamy way. More like, what if I just stayed asleep through the next bell kind of way? But you won't. You never do. This routine has been carved into your bones. Matins, then sleep, then lauds at dawn if you're unlucky. It's not just habit, it's cultural muscle memory, and shame, and fear of being called ungrateful before the Lord. You pull the blanket over your head, trying to trap some breath warmth. It's like building your own personal cave of denial. And eventually, slowly, the second sleep arrives. That's what people called it, segmented sleep. First sleep after sunset, then the midnight waking, then second sleep until dawn. It was normal, expected, even written into medical advice and religious texts. People read, talked, even visited neighbors during the midnight break. You wish you could visit someone, just for a warm drink, or a laugh, or a better mattress. But no one visits anymore, not since the plague. So, you think instead, think about the priest's droning voice. Think about that weird Latin line that sounded like donkey of the Lord. Think about bread, always bread, or warmth, or summer. And then you drift off into that fuzzy second sleep, lighter, stranger, full of half-dreams and odd images like walking into the chapel with a chicken under your arm, or the Virgin Mary handing you a bowl of porridge. You don't remember the dream when you wake, only that the bell rings again, and it's time to go dig, or stitch, or fetch, or carry. Your body hurts, your eyes sting, but you got some sleep, sort of. The second sleep breaks with a sound you know all too well, your stomach. It growls like a cornered animal, long and low, rumbling in the early morning hush. You groan quietly and shift in the straw, hoping the noise didn't wake anyone else. It did. Your brother lets out a sympathetic grunt. Someone coughs. The baby, mercifully, stays asleep. You've reached that grim part of the night, the twilight stretch just before dawn, when you're technically still supposed to be asleep, but your body's too busy reminding you that it's starving. Again, you turn on your side, trying to fool yourself into drifting back off. But it's no use. Your belly complains louder. You picture food, a thick slab of brown bread with butter, real butter. Not the memory of it, a handful of salted beans, or even one of those withered apples someone buried in the snow weeks ago. Anything. But breakfast is hours away, and the medieval peasant breakfast isn't what you'd call generous. A chunk of hard bread, maybe dipped in ale if you're lucky, or wheat gruel, nothing warm, nothing sweet, nothing that lasts past the first 3 bites. So here you are, wide awake and hungry, staring into the dim shadows of the room while your family breathes heavily around you. You try to count those breaths, match your rhythm to theirs, pretend you're just full enough to sleep again. But hunger is persistent. It gnaws at your edges, presses your thoughts into little loops: how to get food, how to stretch food, how to make something out of nothing. You've eaten boiled weeds before. Once you chewed on leather, you told yourself it helped. It didn't. Want something quirky? In some places, people believe stale bread could be revived by sleeping with it under your pillow overnight. You tried that once. All it did was make your pillow crunchy. You sit up slowly, trying not to disturb the others. The fire is out, embers only. You poke at them with a stick, but they don't respond. Your hands are cold, your legs stiff. You creep to the grain jar, what's left of it, and tip out a few dry kernels. You chew them slowly, hoping they'll fill the hole. They don't. Still, there's a kind of ritual to this early waking. You've done it enough times. Sometimes, if the sky's clear, you step outside and look at the stars. You think about other people under the same sky, people with food, people with warm beds. You don't envy them. You just wonder if they ever wake up like this, stomach aching, with a taste of ash and straw in their mouth. Your mother once told you that hunger makes prayers louder, that when your belly aches, God hears you better. You tried praying louder. It didn't seem to help. Sometimes, someone will quietly pass around a hunk of something during this waking hour. A piece of boiled root, a shriveled plum saved from the last market. You eat it in silence, with gratitude so sharp it makes you want to cry, not because it's delicious, just because it's something. Historians still argue whether segmented sleep was a natural rhythm or a product of circumstance, hunger, cold, fear. You're pretty sure it's all of the above. Your body's just playing the only hand it's been dealt: sleep in pieces, eat in scraps. Eventually, the room starts to stir. One cough becomes 2. The baby fusses. Someone stretches. A sneeze explodes in the corner. The day begins, and you still haven't slept properly. You lie back down just for a moment and close your eyes. The straw pricks your cheek. You dream, barely, for maybe 5 minutes of soup, hot and steaming, with a wooden spoon, with herbs, with salt. Then the rooster crows, loud, rude, and someone mutters, "He's early." You sit up. Your tunic clings to you from sweat and sleep. You rub your eyes. Your brother offers you the corner of his crust. You break it in half and chew slowly. That's breakfast. And now the day begins. Again, the dreams are different now, not soft or hopeful, not even hungry, just dark. You dream of fire, of cold, of your dead cousin standing by the river, face turned away. You call out, but he doesn't turn. You wake gasping, sweating despite the cold. Everyone else is still asleep, but you stare at the roof beams, heart thudding, chest tight. Because in the Middle Ages, dreams aren't just dreams. They mean something. You've grown up hearing it. Dreams are messages, warnings, maybe from God, maybe from the devil, maybe from something older and hungrier that lives between sleeping and waking. And if you dream the wrong thing, that could mean trouble, real trouble. You remember when that one girl, Marta, the baker's niece, confessed a dream about fire and snakes and a crying nun? The priest called it diabolical, said it was a sign of corruption. Within a week, she was gone, sent to the convent, or maybe somewhere worse. No one says, no one asks. So when you wake from a bad dream, you keep it to yourself. Historians still argue whether dreams were truly feared across all classes, or if the peasantry simply absorbed the church's paranoia. But you've seen people go pale just hearing someone mention a dream of blood, or wings, or the number 13. And sure, people had fun dreams too, flying, fields of bread, talking animals, but those were safe only if you laughed about them at breakfast. Get too serious, too mystical, and suddenly you're suspicious, or cursed. You once dreamt you were floating over the village, watching your own body lie still in the straw. You told your sister. She made you chew holy salt and whisper 3 paternosters before sleeping again. You haven't mentioned a dream since. Want something fringe in some areas? People believed nightmares were caused by a Mara, a demon-like creature that sat on your chest and crushed the breath from your lungs. To prevent it, you were supposed to sleep with an iron knife under your pillow. You don't have a knife, just a wooden spoon, but you tuck it close anyway. And still, the dreams come, especially during the second sleep, when everything is strange and soft and twisted. You see shapes in the corners of your mind, voices that sound like your mother, saying things she'd never say. You try to stay awake sometimes. You fight sleep, but eventually your body wins, and then it begins again. One neighbor, a gaunt old man with cracked hands and suspicious eyes, once claimed he could interpret dreams. He said your dreams were stained by sin and that you needed to purge your thoughts. He offered to pray over you. You declined. He doesn't come around much anymore. Sometimes you whisper your dreams to the animals instead. The pig listens better than the priest, and he never tells. You've heard that the monks keep dream journals. They write down every symbol, every figure, every divine whisper. You wonder if that makes their dreams clearer or just heavier. Yours aren't clear. They're layered, thick like fog. Sometimes you dream of the fields, but they're underwater, or your house, but with no roof, or your family, but with no faces. The worst are the dreams where you feel safe, warm, fed, alone, finally, in a room of your own. You curl up in a feather bed, fire crackling, belly full. You wake up with tears in your eyes. Those are cruelest of all. Some nights, you ask God to spare you dreams. You'd rather have nothing than wake with dread. But silence is rare. Your mind is a restless creature and sleep is its stage. Your grandmother believed dreams were doorways. She'd wake and spit 3 times to keep the dream from following her back. You've seen her do it. You've started doing it too. The others in the bed shift in their sleep. Someone mutters. You try to ignore the rising panic that you might have spoken aloud in your dream. Did they hear? Did you say something dangerous no one wakes you to accuse? This time, so you breathe. Pull the blanket tighter. Try to think of mundane things, beans, socks, mud, laundry, not devils, not fire, not your cousin's eyes in the dark. Because if someone else hears your dream and it's the wrong kind, you could be branded, banished, or worse, watched. Better to keep it inside. Better to pretend it didn't happen. Better to sleep. You don't remember getting up. One moment you're dreaming something about chasing a goose through a flooded chapel, and the next you're standing outside, barefoot, in the cold mud, holding a scythe. The same scythe you left hanging on the barn wall yesterday. You stare at your hands, fingers numb and clenched around the wooden shaft. The moon hangs overhead like a watcher. Your breath fogs the air. You don't know how long you've been out here. You've sleepwalked. Again, it doesn't happen often. Just when you're truly exhausted, when your dreams run too deep and your body forgets to stay still, you shuffle back inside, not waking anyone. You slide the scythe back to its place and crawl into bed, heart hammering. You don't fall asleep again for a long while. People in your village don't talk about sleepwalking, but they notice. The boy who tried to climb the bell tower in his sleep, the woman who walked into the freezing river and lived, barely. Some say it's a sign you're touched by saints or spirits or madness. Historians still argue whether sleepwalking was viewed with fear or fascination in medieval life. In the chronicles, it's sometimes tied to visions, possession, or miracles. But in your world, it's just unsettling. A reminder that sleep isn't a safe place, even inside your own skin. You once overheard someone whisper, "He walks at night," might be cursed. They were talking about your uncle. He would get up and recite psalms in a trance, barefoot on the dirt floor. One night, he wandered outside and sang to the trees. The next morning, he remembered nothing. But after that, no one would share a bed with him. Want something fringe? There's a belief, an old one, that if you wake a sleepwalker too quickly, their soul might not catch up, that it tears like cloth, leaving them hollow. So if you see someone walking in their sleep, you guide them gently, quietly, as if returning a spirit to its shell. You wonder what made you walk. Was it stress, hunger? A dream too powerful? Your mother says it's because you don't say your prayers right. Your sister says it's just because you're weird. You hope it's the latter. But it's not just you. Your brother mumbles in Latin some nights. Full sentences. He's never been taught Latin. Once he sat up, eyes open, and stared at nothing for 5 full minutes before lying back down. Your mother sprinkled holy water on his brow the next day. He got a rash. She called it spiritual cleansing. Sometimes, during long, tense harvests, you'll see someone out in the fields before dawn, still in their nightshirt, barefoot, dragging a hoe. You know better than to call out. You wait until the sun is fully up. Then you guide them back gently. Tell them they must have been confused. They nod, ashamed, and don't talk about it again. There's a hush around sleepwalking. Not fear exactly, but wariness. Like the person didn't fully return from wherever they went. You've tried tricks to keep yourself still, tying one foot to the bed frame with twine, putting your water jug in front of the door to trip you awake. You even tried sleeping with a stone under your pillow once. That just gave you a sore neck and another weird dream about goats. It's the scythe that scared you most. You still don't know why you picked it up. What did you plan to do? Were you dreaming of harvest, of defense, of death? You didn't ask. No one in your family sleepwalks far. You've heard tales from the next village over of a boy who vanished in the night and was found 2 days later asleep under a tree, miles from home. He never spoke again. People say he saw something out there. Your grandmother once told you that the soul wanders during sleep, that if it's troubled, it might pull the body along. That's why we cover the mirrors. she said, so the soul doesn't get confused and stay behind. You believe her. You've started sleeping with your hands crossed over your chest, just in case, like they'll hold you in place, like they'll pin your soul to your ribs. Most nights now, you sleep in lighter layers, not for comfort, but so you'll wake if the cold air hits you outside. It's a signal, a trick, a hope, and still, sometimes, you wake with muddy feet. You don't talk about it. You just whisper thanks to the morning sky that you didn't do anything worse. And then you try to sleep again. You're not sick, but you're not well either. You're in that hazy, aching middle ground where your head feels stuffed with wool, your throat scrapes, and your limbs weigh double what they should. You didn't sleep much. Again. And when you did, it was shallow, sour, fever-tinged. The fire burned low. Your blanket slipped off sometime after midnight. And now, your nose is cold enough to feel brittle. You tuck it under someone's arm, hoping for warmth. But all you get is a grunt and a sharp elbow in return. Illness is part of life here. It drifts through the village like mist. Subtle at first, then overwhelming. You've seen the signs before. One person sniffles. Another starts coughing. By the third day, everyone's sweating through their clothes, lips cracked, eyes red. Sleep becomes a battlefield because when your body's sick, rest is supposed to help. But when you're a medieval peasant, rest doesn't come easy. Not when your bedding is filthy, your room is damp, and your neighbors are louder than a sheep stampede in a thunderstorm. You try to doze again. But someone's snoring, not the regular kind, the wet, rattling kind that makes you think they might not wake up. You roll over, your throat is parched, but the water's in a bucket across the room. And that bucket's got a floating layer of something. You don't ask what, you drink anyway. Want something quirky? In some villages, people treated sleeplessness with warm ox urine. Yes, urine, mixed with herbs, sometimes heated over coals and sipped like tea. It clears the humors, they said, brings balance. You tried it once, never again. Historians still argue whether these remedies were based on real observation or pure medieval guesswork. Honestly, it's probably both. You've also been told to sleep with a dead mole under your pillow. You didn't, but your uncle did. Swore it worked. Your body wants rest, but the fever has other plans. You toss, you twist. Your sweat soaks the straw. Someone shifts beside you and mutters, "Stop wriggling." You whisper, "Sorry." But you both know sleep won't come easy tonight. You start counting. Not sheep, you've seen too many of those to find them comforting. You count potatoes. That's how bad it's gotten. But they won't stay still in your mind. They start dancing, wearing boots, mocking your fever. Eventually, you sit up and wrap yourself in the blanket like a sad, damp cloak. You walk outside. The air hits your face like a slap. Cold, sharp. You welcome it. You stare at the stars. They don't care that you're sick. They don't care about anything. You whisper a little prayer, not a fancy one. Just let me rest, just for one night. You go back inside. Someone's rolled into your spot. You don't have the energy to move them. You curl up beside the pig. He's warm. He grunts once, but doesn't move. You close your eyes and let your thoughts drift. You think of herbs. Your grandmother used to brew a tea of valerian root, honey and moss. It tasted like sweet rot, but it worked. When she died, no one remembered the recipe. You tried to replicate it once, ended up vomiting in the goat shed. Still, you keep trying. Last week, you steeped crushed mint in hot water. It helped a little, calmed your breath, slowed your thoughts. You slept for an hour straight, which felt like a miracle. You wake again. You think it's dawn, but the fire's still low, and no one's moved. You don't know what time it is. There's no clock. Time is measured by cold toes, firewood piles, and the rooster's moods. Your head still aches, but now your stomach's chiming in. Hunger and illness do not mix well. You shuffle to the table, break off a hunk of hard bread, and chew slowly. It tastes like sawdust. You swallow anyway. Some nights, sleep is healing. Others, it's just a timeout between rounds of misery. You don't get better, you just get less worse. You cling to moments of comfort, a warm mug, a dry blanket, a quiet hour, and still, you dream. Fever dreams, of floating down rivers made of porridge, of singing mice, of your sister riding a rooster into battle. You wake with a start, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You do neither. You lie back down and press your forehead to the cool stone wall. It helps. A little. And eventually, slowly, the sickness dulls. Not gone, but softened. The aches fade. Your limbs loosen. You sleep a little longer. The dreams are less frantic. You wake feeling almost okay. You don't remember the turning point. Just that one night. You slept a full 3 hours. And in the morning, you noticed the sun looked softer. Maybe it was the moss tea. Maybe the mole charm under your cousin's pillow worked on you by accident. Maybe it was just time. Either way, you're grateful. And you sleep. You don't own a clock. No one in your village does. Time is a sound, a shadow, a sunbeam creeping across a wall. You rise when the rooster crows unless he's feeling lazy, in which case, the pigs take over, and you sleep when the sky darkens. The fire gutters out, and your limbs scream from another day of toil. It's not precise. It's not consistent. But it's yours. Your sleep schedule isn't a schedule at all. It's a rhythm, a negotiation between the land and your body. In summer, daylight stretches until late, and you collapse long after you should have. In winter, darkness falls early and thick, so you sleep more but in broken fits, always cut by cold, by hunger, by matins bells or murmured prayers. You learn to sleep by the sun. It tells you when the oats need planting, when the turnips are ready, when your bones should stop moving, when clouds cover the sun, you guess, or follow the birds, or trust your gut. It's not always right. Historians still debate whether medieval people followed strict patterns or adapted to seasons and chores. From where you lie half asleep on a bed of tired straw, it's clearly the latter. The sun rules you more than your lord does, and yet, sometimes it feels peaceful. You wake to golden morning light pooling through the cracks in the shutter. You don't need an alarm. Your body simply knows. You stretch under the blanket. Feel the familiar ache of joints, the whisper of straw crackling, the gentle rise and fall of the sleeping pile around you. It's not comfort exactly, but it's habit, and habit becomes its own kind of rest. You rise with the others, in a quiet sequence of yawns and foot scraping. You pull on yesterday's clothes, still stiff at the cuffs, still dusted with hay. You move toward the fire. Someone's got it going already. You mutter thanks, or maybe just grunt. No one needs much talking before dawn. Later, when the sun's high and the work is hard, you'll snatch minutes of sleep wherever you can, against a fence post, beneath a tree, slumped over a sack of barley. The midday nap isn't laziness, it's survival. The kind of sleep that arrives suddenly and disappears just as fast. Want something quirky? Some peasants believed that sleeping too much could invite illness. Sleep past sunrise, they'd say, and the devil tucks you in. You're not sure if that's theology or guilt-tripping, but either way, you rarely risk it. Evening sleep is better. It has structure. You light a candle if you have one, tell a story or mumble a prayer, then pile into bed as the fire dies. The day's done. Your body is sore, but the good kind earned. Your hands still smell like soil and sweat. You fall asleep fast. Some nights, you stay up late with your father. He sharpens tools, and you sit beside him, eyes half closed, listening to the scrape of stone on metal. You don't talk. You just exist, together, in the lull between waking and sleep. You think about time differently now, not in hours, in warmth, in light, in chores completed and meals missed, in how long the bread lasted, in how long until the rains. You don't count minutes, you count mornings. Sometimes, You ask what day it is. Your mother shrugs. Saint something's day. That's enough. The saints know the calendar. You just follow their lead. Sleep isn't measured. It's felt. If you wake with crust in your eyes and your back in knots, it was probably decent. If you wake 10 times to stoke the fire or swat at fleas or check for missing turnips, maybe not. But you'll survive. You always do. In your world, time is soft. It drifts. It bends. It breathes with the seasons. And sleep bends with it. You've never heard of insomnia, not by name, but you've felt it. The restless nights when your mind buzzes and your legs twitch and the fire dies too fast. When you do sleep well fully, deeply, you feel it in your chest, in the warmth of your belly, in the slowness of your breath. You stretch in the morning like a cat. You crack your knuckles and smile at the sun like it's an old friend. Those days are rare, but they happen. And when they do, you thank the rooster. You thank the sky. You thank the blessed rhythm of days and nights, the gift of not knowing what hour it is, only that you've made it through one more sunrise. You go back to your chores, your feet in the dirt, your hands in the grain, but part of you stays wrapped in that morning glow, warm and slow and still resting, even as the day begins, because that's how you sleep, not by the clock, but by the world. You've reached the end of the rope and somehow you're still holding on. Your body aches in places you forgot could hurt. Your knees click like old hinges. Your back is a knot of knots. But tonight you sleep, not just from exhaustion, though that's a factor. Not just from hunger, fear, cold, or sickness, but because your life is a series of interrupted sleeps and you've learned to find rest inside the chaos. Tonight is quiet. A rare gift. The wind has calmed. The pigs are fed and content. No rats squeal. No baby cries. The fire holds a slow, steady breath of warmth. And for once, your family's snoring forms a kind of rhythm like waves, lapping at the edge of your mind. You lie there, wrapped in a blanket that smells like smoke and straw, and close your eyes. You think maybe this is what peace feels like. Here in this broken, brambled corner of the world, you sleep deeply and dreamlessly, but then something stirs, a movement, a final reminder your age is catching up with you. You feel it in your fingers, where they've stiffened into crooked hooks, in your knees, which now take twice the time to rise in the morning. You've lived longer than many around you, and that makes you wise or just lucky, or maybe unlucky, because the older you get, the more sleep becomes a luxury, the less your body obeys. Some nights, you lie awake and stare into the fire, remembering all the things you tried to forget, faces gone. Winters survived, things you had to do to make it through the leanest years. You try to quiet your mind. But memories are louder than dreams. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants died young because of poor sleep, or if their short lives just made sleep harder to waste. But you know this, your best dreams came in the strangest places. Half napping in the shade during harvest, curled under a wagon during a summer storm, lying beside a child who needed your warmth more than you needed comfort. And one day, you feel it, that you're sleeping more, that the aches don't wake you quite as sharply, that your dreams have become softer. Like fog rolling across the field, you rise slower, you eat less, you speak less, you're tired all the time, but not in a bad way. Just tired. You know what this means. People start checking on you more, bringing you soup, letting you stay in the warmest corner of the house. The fire is always lit. You sleep sitting up, mostly. Sometimes you drift off in the middle of a conversation. No one minds. One morning, you don't get up. You're still warm, but quiet, still tucked in, the same as any other night. The others gather. They speak softly. Your sister brushes your hair back from your face and says, "He looks peaceful," and you do. You finally found uninterrupted sleep, the kind no one disturbs, the kind you've earned, the kind that holds, the kind that lasts. And now, we slow it all down. Let the past drift back to where it came from. Let the fire in your mind flicker low, soft and steady. You're not in the thatched roof hut anymore. You're not lying on a bed of straw, or curled next to pigs, or listening for war horses in the distance. You're here, in your space, in your own warmth. Feel the weight of your blanket, the quiet of your room, the calm hum of night around you. You've traveled far tonight, through frost and famine, through flickering dreams and whispered prayers, through centuries of interrupted rest and hard-won survival, through the eyes of someone who made it through one more dusk at a time. And now you can let go, breathe slower, let each inhale stretch a little longer. Let each exhale carry away the echoes of candlelight and bells, of wooden spoons and whispered lullabies. You don't have to keep watch tonight. No one will burst through your door, no rats in the straw, no bells ringing through the cold. Just rest. Your breath, your heartbeat, your own rhythm. Let it lull you, let it hold you. And if you dream, may it be gentle. A warm sunbeam on a quiet morning, a full belly, a silent field. Sleep well. You've earned it.